So I've installed some apps on my iPhone that should be good for writing. I researched like the best apps for writers and all that. I installed a few. I'm going to show you the ones I think are most promising and the ones that I might continue to use. I'm still going to need to test these out, but let me just take you through. So on the one hand, we could just write in like a text in the notepad, which would look kind of like this. It works fine. It would save to the iCloud. I could also put it up in a Dropbox or something. It works, it's all right. It's not the best choice probably. And the other option would be just to go to Docs. That's just Google Docs. So I could just have a Google document set up that I could open and edit. I've already played around with this a little bit. But the nice thing about Google Docs is that it would just automatically sync. So it's just one document. I would just write it. I would get the notes. I could log on with my computer and just copy paste everything. And it's super easy to use. It syncs automatically. So that's some features I like of Google Docs. It makes a lot of practical sense, but it doesn't really have everything I'm looking for. I really want something that will show me the word count. It's not necessarily the most important thing, and I actually want to test whether it's better or worse to actually see the word count because it might be distracting. But that's something I want to test, so I have to have the ability. And right now, I like having the word count so that I can push towards a goal and kind of know how many words I've written and how many more I have to do. So that's what I'm looking for right now. Google Docs is kind of a good backup, though. That's something I'll keep in mind because it definitely works really well. I'm also really curious about Wattpad because Wattpad has a writing feature for the iPhone that works pretty well. I could write a new chapter, continue writing. It saves like where I was working before. And these actually saves as drafts. So one of the nice things is I can put a picture up on top so I can get a picture for this scene to kind of keep the location of the setting in mind. And then I can just, I wrote some notes to myself, which I'll scroll down. The nice thing about this also is that there is a little word count down there. So it's small, but I can be typing. It's one big white screen, and then down there, there's the word count. So I could add some extra like picture or video or whatever. I don't really need to do that, but I kind of like that it has the word count. So that's one thing. The other really interesting thing about Wattpad, even though I'm pretty sure I could write this way and save it as a draft and edit it and only publish like when I'm ready, I'm kind of attracted to the idea of just writing publicly as a productivity hack. If you were writing your rough draft, like if you're writing on Wattpad, nobody's really paying attention or following you anyway, but just having it be public, so when you publish it, it's automatically, like somebody could be reading it, it could be out there. It might make me write a little cleaner the first rough draft, or care a little bit more about getting it right on the first rough draft, which isn't really what you're supposed to do on the first rough draft. Anyway, that's something I'll probably revisit. I don't think I'm confident enough to do that yet because my rough drafts are kind of sloppy. But I like the idea. I might go back and do something where I'm publicly writing the first draft and inviting readers to follow me. Anyway, so we also have Dropbox. I could just go right into the Dropbox folder and I could find the files that I needed. So I think I have a file here, and I could just click on any of these text documents, and I could just be writing in there. So that's just I think it's just a text file. Oops. I think I could also have a Word document, although I'm not sure exactly how the iPhone handles Word documents. I think it's okay to have one, but it's basically just like some of the others. There's no word count goal. It's just like a white screen, which is fine, but I'm looking for something a little bit better. So two of the apps that I found that I really like are down here. There's Byword and there's iAwriter. And they're pretty simple, but they have some features that I do like. So for example, this is Byword. It's just a white page again, but it does have a word count down there. So I could just be writing. I also kind of like how the word count's not right next to the writing. So I could be writing and just glance down at the word count. I also like how it's kind of small and grayed out, so it's not super big. I also like writing with a timer, so that's one little problem. Like on my computer, I'll set a timer that'll notify me. So the problem with some of these devices, if I'm just on my iPhone, I have to use some other device to do the timer, but then at least I could keep track of the word count goals really quickly. I could have like a notepad, or I could just be watching the clock on the wall or something like that for the timer. So this byline works pretty well. I can sync things. It also has a little bit more of a menu down here. If I scroll, it shows me the characters or the word counts, and I can flick this over, and it has some more options for formatting stuff. So it works fine, but it's not actually my favorite. And I found it's difficult to get out of this. I don't know why, but like I can't actually close the app. I have to like close the whole thing to get it to open back up to the main screen, the main menu. And then there are some like folder choices, but it's not very robust. It doesn't do very many things. But I can choose the locations and then choose iPhone, iCloud, Dropbox, where the files are saving, which is pretty nice. And there are some extra settings, but not very much. So the other app that I really like is iAwriter. This is probably going to be my favorite. There's a few things I like about it. I'll put it down here. It also has the word count up here on top. I'm using the dark mode, but there's a light mode too. I was just checking it out. But the really cool thing I like about it is that it'll highlight. There's a setting for highlighting the paragraph you're actually on. So see how that one's whiter, and if I hit return, it grays out, and now this one's brighter. You can see it better on the white version, so I'll switch that in a minute. But the idea is you could be writing a paragraph, hit return, and your eyes are focused on what you're writing, and it kind of fades out all the stuff that you've written before. And I also really like how it's in the middle of the screen. So rather than trying to keep track of like where your cursor actually is, it centers the writing. Wherever you're writing, it's always in the middle of the screen, which I just think is really kind of well done. It shows the word count up there. I think like even though this is a really simple little thing, that could drastically boost my word count, so I'm kind of excited to try that out. So I've set it back to the normal mode instead of the night mode. This is under settings. It also has files, library, editor, templates, so you can change what the style of your stuff looks like. This could also be really good for blogging. You can connect a WordPress account or a Medium account, which is pretty neat actually, so you should be able to update your blog posts, etc. I mostly want to use it for novel writing, so I'll show you again how that looks like. This is where you can save it from other apps on iPhone open, so you can open a Dropbox. There's also, I added the Scrivener file. I'm not sure if this will work with Scrivener. My guess is not. I think you'd have to open the Scrivener file with Dropbox directly. I'm going to show you what Scrivener looks like in a minute. I'm not actually happy with it on the iPhone. So here's the interface again. It shows the word count up there on the top. It keeps the text here in the center. And then when I hit return, it fades out almost completely. I mean, especially on the white. And then it really keeps you focused in on the current line. This also is for paragraphs. So if I held this down long enough, oops, I guess I can't hold it down. I have to keep typing. This whole paragraph would stay lit up until I was finished the paragraph. It's only when you hit return that it would kind of disappear like that. I think that's a really neat feature. I'm excited to try to use that. It's probably the main selling point for this one. I do like that it only says I've written 4 words because I've just been using this random text. Down here there's also this big menu option which gives you a lot of formatting features. That's not stuff I'll probably use if I'm doing rough drafts. And then you can get out of this really easy by scrolling down, and then you get back to the menu up here. You can actually see, if you hit play, it kind of shows you what it looks like. It gives you a little like preview of what it would look like. You can change the fonts and stuff. So this is like to see how it would actually look in the real world. But you can also just go back to the menu or to the library and grab, if I want to open my Dropbox and I want to find the document that I used recently, somewhere in there I have some document. So I can just get straight into Dropbox and open a document and start working. So going a little deeper, there's a few features I'm really looking for, and I went back and tried to figure out Scrivener a bit. So I have Scrivener for PC, and what it has is this feature to let you set the manuscript target and the session target. What I was really looking for is the deadline feature, which I saw some of my friends using, where you could add a date when the project needs to be finished, and that lets you know how close you are, how much time you have left for that deadline, but it looks like that's not available on the PC. So the PC version doesn't have that anyway. It also just doesn't look as nice. I think the Mac version makes it look really cool, and in the PC it's just not that attractive. You have this little screen. I could write in here and also keep track of the session target, but that doesn't really show up if I want to go to up here, which is the full page mode anyway. So even though it has like the word count, I'd have to actually go down and check the word count. So this works fine if I was just using the PC, but since I'm trying to switch over to the iPhone app anyway, and like I said, I figured out, I think, that the Scrivener for iPhone app doesn't even have those features. It doesn't have even like a word count goal for the session or the target or anything like that. So it's basically just, you know, typing the words on the page, which is all right, but I think there are better apps that do that for the iPhone. Like I said, for iAwriter, but iAwriter is probably what I'll use, but I really also wanted something for long-term accountability. So what I really need, on the one hand, is some kind of a timer. So if I had my desktop with me, I could set up a timer. It's not awesome that I can't find an app that actually has a timer, but then it'd also be nice to have some long-term accountability. So there are a few apps that I might try to build a writing habit with. And the one I'd probably like best is Wordly, which is just a really simple thing. I can set a project, and then I can just set a timer. I couldn't use this while I was actually writing with the app, so that doesn't really work. This is something like I would need 2 iPhones, or this is something I could use if I figured out how to write on my iPad. And I think the iPad version does have some of those Scrivener extra features, so I might try figuring out Scrivener on the iPad if it has the session word count targets. On the other hand, like, all it really does is a session target. If I knew that I wanted to write 3,000 words, I just kept writing until I hit 3,000 words. I don't really need like this progress bar or anything. I just need the word count goal. So up here I can add a project, and I can edit that. I can set the total target, a starting word count, targets per day. So I set up like I want to write 3,000 words a day, and I can also turn the daily notifications on, so it tells me, you know, basically just reminds me, did you do your 3,000 words? And I can go back. So whenever I want, I can just start a new session, and then I can just put in my words written. So I don't really have to do the start time or finish time or all that, or the writing time, although I could. And if I just save this and update it, it will just update. So this is kind of an easy way to keep track. And then it also has some cool data and stats. So it'll tell me, you know, if I want to look at long-term, my writing progress or my average words per hour, how much the book I've completed, things like that. So that's words per week. There's a lot of cool little, just as a way of keeping track. And also it's pretty easy to use. So here's a writing graph, like a long-term writing graph. I can look at the weeks or the months or the years. That's pretty cool to track long-term progress, writing progress. And I want something that's really easy to use. So this way I can set up a project. I can just go to session. All I really have to do is put in the words every day, like the words I wrote. I can just easily update that. I don't have to do like every session. I could just combine it all into one. So that's probably the one that I like. There's a premium option I haven't checked out yet, but I'll play around with this first. The other one is Word Keeper, which looks really cool, but is also a little more complicated. So it's not as simple as Wordly, which is probably why like it'd be harder to get into using it, just because it's a little more complicated. There's a lot of like cool stuff. And the one feature that I like, I could set up a project, I could add a cover, I could set certain writing days. So there's a lot of stuff I can do here. I can also add a deadline, I think, which is something I couldn't do on Writerly. So then it could probably remind me or tell me like how much I need to write to get the project done. I might play around more with that. One of the things I did like about it, let me see if I can find it. It'll also show me kind of a daily progress or a daily goal. And then the burn downs, it shows like long-term stuff, the achievements. A lot of the same stats, it's just more nicely designed. It looks pretty good, but that might be like a little harder to actually get using or get the hang of, just because it's a little more complicated and less easy to figure out what's going on. I do like this entry calendar view though, so I can just, it works kind of the same way as the other one. I can go up here to new session. I could just type in my word count, whatever that is. Be nice if I wrote that much every day. I don't actually. Then the total word count of the project, save. So the other thing that works really well is if I just add in a new session, then down here under the calendar view, it will show that I did a session that day. So even if I just use it daily, just I think seeing in the calendar view, I've also I've heard a lot of other authors, they'll take a real calendar and they'll just make an X over every day. So kind of the idea of don't break the chain. If you want to set up a daily writing habit, it's valuable to just see a calendar view and see the sequential progress that you're writing every day. Even if it's just a short, like even just opening your document, it doesn't matter how many words you actually wrote per day, but just doing the work, doing your sessions, doing at least like 1 or 2 writing sprints. I try to do like 3 or 4 writing sprints a day because I've been a slow writer. I can do about 500 words in 25-minute sprint, which isn't super, but if I do 4 of those a day, then I get enough words done. Anyway, so I like this feature that shows the calendar. I think that might be really motivational just to see the long-term progress. And I think that's something that's missing from Wordly. I'll go back and check real quick. Yeah, so Wordly doesn't have that kind of a calendar view, and it also doesn't have a deadline view, so it doesn't tell me how many days are left to finish my project, which isn't a big deal. It does have a timer, which is fine. I'll show you real quick. The other app I like is by Chris Fox. I'm not sure if this is actually available anymore. I think I got an earlier version that went along with his book, which is 5,000 words per hour. It's basically a timer that also has some stats and achievements and goals and stuff. You can set a project, and it's pretty similar where you'll just go in, you'll do a writing sprint, and then you'll go in and add a new project. Anyway, so those are some things I may play around with. I'll try to figure out the best app that works. Like I said, I may try figuring out Scrivener with the iPad a little bit just to see if that has some extra features that I like. And otherwise, it's kind of a combination. It's too bad there's not just one perfect program. And I don't really want to. The idea of doing it with my iPhone is that I can just, very quickly grab this keyboard, keep it in my backpack, and do writing sprints with my iPhone anytime. I don't really want to carry my iPad around with me all the time, or I don't want to need to depend on it. Like if I use Scrivener for iPad, then I may be stuck because I could only work on my book, when I'm using the iPad, and I may not always have it with me. So I'll try to figure out basically a strategy. It doesn't really matter what you use, and it's not the most important thing, but once you are writing pretty well and you have a writing habit and you've done some books, you know how to finish books, then fine-tuning your process and getting some of the right software or hardware, if it could help you develop a writing habit, something that also has accountability or tracking, like some of those iPhone apps I showed, altogether it's getting used to writing a certain way and building a habit out of it that includes some stress or pressure with deadlines or word count goals. Also accountability, long-term accountability by showing you how much you've done in the past and how you can compare with what you've been doing. Because it's not really about just sitting down and doing the work. It's more about establishing a long-term habit. So these are some things I'm trying to figure out now. I hope this video helps a little bit. I'll probably make another video when I've really fine-tuned the process and figured out the exact formula, because this is still the research phase. I have to actually try to do the writing. Some little things, for example, one of the things that I really want to try is turning the screen off completely. So even if I'm using iAwriter, even if I'm using an app that I think works really well, I may want to try something where I can turn the word count up here off. So I want to figure out if it actually helps me to see the word count or if that's distracting. So I may try turning that off. I may try turning this into the night mode, which is the black background and the white text, just to see if that helps a little bit. It's kind of all just tricking your brain into not being distracted and focusing on the story. And one of the ways that I found to do that is to just turn the words off altogether, by turning the screen off, or just by turning the iPhone around and trying to do my writing sprints without actually seeing the screen. That's a little trick I think could have really big benefits, by like forcing your brain to actually picture the scene and not be so distracted by the words you're trying to use to display the scene. I can see my reflection in my devices, so I'll sign off that way. Goodbye. I hope this video helps a little bit, and I'll keep you updated on my writing progress. I've been trying to get to, right now I'm at like 1,200 words a day. I'd love to get to 3,000 words consistently a day and keep it that way until the end of the year, which would be a huge boost for me. Eventually, maybe next year, I'd like to get up, above 5,000 words a day. This is what I want to do full time. So developing a writing habit and being able to produce more quality words more quickly, it's definitely something worth investing in. And also, it's not something that comes easily. It's something you need to build up with practice. So once you have, something that works, you really need to practice and repeat and build up your ability to write faster, because it is like a muscle that you can build and get stronger with repetition and practice. So that's my goal for this year and next year. If I can get up to 5,000 words a day, that's really pretty insane. I could get a 100K novel written every month, which would be great. But even if I could just get, if I could get 50K written a month consistently, not just every 4 months, but like every single month, to put out a new book or another 50K, that would be huge for my writing business and my practice, and also just in terms of income goals and putting out new releases. So thanks, bye-bye.